A warm welcome to everybody. Thank you for watching. My name is Sidney Winston. I am an atheist, a humanist, and a Zionist. I call those the three seculars. A warm welcome to everybody. And I am. My name is Sidney Winston. I am three seculars, but I'm one Sidney Winston. So I'm an atheist, I'm a humanist, I'm a Zionist, right? But I'm one person. But I'm three things. Does that make me less of one person? No, it doesn't. Which is why the Christian Trinity is so amazingly irrational, illogical, and impossible. I mean, let's face it, we got the Jews with their one God, okay? And then you got the Muslims with their one God. Fine. They're probably both the same, exactly the same concept of God. And then you got the Christians. They walk in there all smirky on their faces, and they slap on a spirit and they slap on a person onto their God, and they pretend to claim that it's one. It's one God. But really it's three. Because if a father is a God, and the son is a God, and a spirit is a God, whatever that means, then, hey, there's gods all over the fucking place, aren't there? Isn't there? Aren't there? Which leads me to today's topic. Today's topic is a speech, or sorry, it's a reaction, a retro reaction to a Nate Cunningham episode where he titled it something like the problem of. I'll tell you exactly what it says. I can tell you exactly what it says. It says, okay, problem of evil? Is there a problem? I think I put it in the front here. Yeah. Problem of evil? What problem of evil? I'm going to add it to the I'm going to add it to this one here. I can't remember. Text. All right, just give me one moment. I'll add it in because it doesn't quite function properly, the screen, without I'm sorry for dilly-dallying, but I'm kind of waiting for people to join so I can get this puppy going. Topic. Text. Screw it, I'll just add it in. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. So, all right. So this is what he called his sorry, man. Right. All right. So this is what he called it. He said, problem of evil? There we go. So we are going to take a deep dive into this claim and find out exactly what the fuck he's talking about. Okay. There we go.
Welcome to our Sunday night religious discussion with me, Nate Cunningham. Anyway, if you want to be a part of the panel or join with questions or topics, go to natecunningham.org/guest. You'll find the link to join the room there. Anyway, so today's topic, problem of evil. Well, there is no problem of evil. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Okay, we'll talk about it. Anyway.
Oh, wait. Do I go LOL? LOL?
I don't know. I keep saying I have no future in comedy, and I keep trying anyways. So, well, anyway, right. So let's get started. The problem of evil, usually it will go something like, there's a God. Someone will dare to make the claim that there's a higher power. Then someone will, make the claim that this higher power is good or cares about us or give a crap what we do or something like that. And then someone will say that that's a problem. There's a problem of evil because either your God is a wimp and can't do anything, and he just has this bleeding heart while this pain and suffering is going on, or this God really is all-powerful and can do things with, a blink of an eye or a thought or whatever the spirit equivalent of that is. But he doesn't. So, if he can prevent all this evil and suffering, but he doesn't, there's a problem of evil. And these are usually the two kind of extreme points of view, and that seems to be the overwhelming majority. That's all anyone wants to consider. I'm like, guys, there's a whole myriad of things in between those two extremes. Why wouldn't you just take a few minutes to explore those? I think, in between these two extremes, you can find all kinds of explanations to solve the problem of evil. It doesn't speak to the truthiness of it, but it certainly explains it really well. Then all that's, left to be determined is, like usual, well, what do you believe based on all the data you've taken in? Anywho, so let's start there. And I guess, my case that I want to point out, the biggest thing is, according to, kind of mainstream traditional Christian theology, this is not God's world. God doesn't have ownership. Again, whatever the spirit equivalent of ownership is, I think the Bible makes it very clear this is not God's place. So anything God does here, anything God does, I think on this planet, he's kind of behind enemy lines. So let's explore that real quick. I'm not going to go through the entire Bible, but, being a Christian, it's kind of what we do. So let me share the screen real quick before we hear any other commentary. So a couple things, just to point out, right? If you talk about the temptation of Jesus, so I'll just read a little bit, but it's in Matthew 4. So you could start there. And, it says at the end of it, again, the devil took him, the devil, right? He's identified. So, the Bible, if we're going to talk like the Bible's true about some things, like, oh, look who God smote, God's so evil, look who God punished, God's so evil. So if we're going to talk about the Bible as it being true in that context when it serves a negative agenda, well, let's continue through and really talk about the Bible like it's actually true. So, the identified bad guy is the devil, Hasatan, Satan, Lucifer, that guy. So, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their grandeur. And he said to him, I will give you all these things if you throw yourself to the ground and worship me. Then Jesus told him to peace out and go away. So I think, right there, I mean, there's been all kinds of expositories and things like this about it. Yeah, clearly, if it wasn't the devil's to give, well, Jesus would have probably had a different response. But it seems like, even Jesus recognized that the devil did have this stuff to give. He just wasn't having any part of it. One more little citing, and then we'll get started with some commentary and stuff. So, if you go to 2 Corinthians 4, I'm just going to, here's kind of preface in verse 1 to 3, but I'll just start with 4. So, say, if the good, 3. So, if the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil and is hidden only from people who are perishing, Satan, who is the God of this world. Like, I always love it when there's really no wiggle room for interpretation. I mean, if you have a problem with this, then either you can't read or you just being like, oh, that's clearly what it says, but I'm going to interpret that completely different. So I think this is one of those times when there's not a whole lot of ways to get it wrong. So If the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil, it's hidden only from those who are perishing. Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They're unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. But anyway, so it clearly says, right, this is a big biblical claim. It's a truth claim. Satan, who is the god of this world. So I'm really trying to say this a bunch of times in a bunch of ways, so it really sinks in at the beginning. There is a lot of things I think that blame should fall to before it gets to God. Indirectly, if he truly created everything, including the devil, then I guess indirectly you can trace it back to him. But whenever there's like a conspiracy or a judicial problem in our own lives, in our own land, one of the last people we want to blame is someone who indirectly did it. We want the culprit directly responsible for the event. In this case, Satan. Anyway, one more thing. Let me just read this in the message. I was reading this, and this was not my intent, but it just stuck out so great in this translation. How many people are watching now? How well does this describe a lot of the people who will be watching this? If our message is obscure to anyone, it's not because we're holding back in any way. No, it's because these other people are looking or going the wrong way and refuse to give it serious attention. All they have eyes for is the fashionable god of darkness. They think they can give him, he can give them what they want, and they won't bother to and they won't have to bother believing a truth they can't see. They're stone blind to the day-spring brightness of the message that shines with Christ, who gives us the best picture of God we'll ever get. Anyway, how many people does that describe? That's rhetorical. It's a lot. But I guess that's kind of the foundation to stop on, so we can talk there. Roy, what are your thoughts so far? Is there any doubt this is God's world and it's going just how he perfectly planned everything? Or do you think the Bible, I don't know, is true when it makes the claim that Satan is the god of this world, not God?
Yeah, I think God is made in our image. Oh, wait, hold it. I'm sorry. That's the atheist view. Sorry. I'm made in God's image, and because of that, it's perfect. Because God, by definition, does everything perfect. This is not plan B or plan Z. This is plan A. There's only one plan, and everyone fits perfectly into God's plan, both believer and unbeliever. And so evil entered the world when man decided to disobey God, who knows everything. So yeah, was he tricked? Well, he wasn't, she was. She was deceived, he transgressed. And because of that, their eyes were opened to the knowledge of good and evil. And if an atheist or a non-believer doesn't get that, God help them, because I can't. That's all I got, Nate.
Well, I guess one more thing before we open this up is, really consider this. I think, because there's a problem of evil, and there's pain and suffering and all kinds of tragedy and bad stuff happening. Yeah, I don't think that, God is evil because he can snap his fingers and make everything perfect, and he doesn't. So I don't think that's the case. Nor do I think the other case, the other extremity, like I mentioned earlier, is the case where, God is so weak and he has this bleeding heart and he's really wanting things to change, but he just can't quite get there. I think God really does have to do things. I don't think, my personal opinion, somewhere in the two extremes, I don't think it's a difficult task or anything like that. Maybe it is. But I really think, we get the message of the Bible, the life of Christ, everything we see, right? And, like we just read, according to the Bible, like it's true, it says Christ is the best picture of God we're ever going to get. So if we can't judge, God and his attributes and qualities through looking at the life of Christ, then we should just stop now, because that's the best we're getting, says the Bible. Anyway, yeah, so it seems like, even Jesus, he didn't just like hang out on a hammock and say, hey guys, chill, I've got this. This is perfect. This is just what I want. Look at those people over there who are running through the courtyard naked, and look at those people who are fighting and ripping off their clothes because they're freaking insane. He didn't say that. He went out and did something. He confronted the problems, he confronted the oppression, evil, things like that, and affected, people's lives for real good. So anyway, I guess, a middle line of the approach is God really has to do something. If there really is this epic holy war, in some spiritual realm taking place, then I guess in the scheme of eternity, when we have no idea where it begins, You know, we have, I think, a decent handle on our own universe, but that's not really eternity. That's our universe. So, you know, if there really is this thing that's in this infinite loop or has been going on forever and ever and ever, and there really is some kind of war taking place between good energy, bad energy, spirits, whatever, then 2,000 years, 10,000 years, you know, doesn't seem like a whole lot of time in the scheme of things. So, you know, for all the people know, God is doing what God does, and devil's doing what they're doing, and they're fighting. So this world looks like, you know, war-torn war zone. I guess that's really the main thing I want to consider. So, yeah, let's go ahead and open it up. Ben, have you anything to say about that? You're also on mute.
Okay, you should be able to hear me now.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree that there's these two extreme thought processes going on amongst people here on Earth, and very seldom do you hear, you know, there's you know the 20% extreme this way and the 20% extreme this way, and you don't hear the 60% in the middle that actually understand that the sovereignty of God exists, and they don't give God his due. And you know, God gave over this world to Satan, and so people just don't want to understand that yes, God could do whatever he wants to do, but God himself has his own plan, and as human beings, A, we're not in a position to judge that plan, B, we're not even in a position to understand what that plan is. And so as human beings, the flawed human beings that we are, we just can't get there. So we try to postulate from this extreme or that extreme, because those are the only two extremes that we understand.
M and K, how about you, sir?
The indictment I hear most often is usually involving misfortune. You know, people want to know why God allows that. I recently heard of a friend whose 12-year-old daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And well, I didn't ask him. I've asked people in the past if they were God. You know, right now, go ahead and eliminate something. And if they were to eliminate stage 4 cancer, I don't think they understand that there's something else that would quickly move into its place, from diabetes or whatever else happened to be the nastiest thing that happens to people at the time. So there's that, and then there's also the issue of you can't have light without darkness, or you certainly can't appreciate light without darkness. And you know, I don't think people put themselves in the place of God and imagine how the world would run if they were in charge, you know. But it's just a matter of where you're going to set the limit. Things could be a lot worse. I mean, I could look out the window and see 3-headed infants crawling across my lawn, for that matter, you know, but I don't. So maybe God is putting limits on the horrors that can happen on this planet, you know. But that's just my thoughts on it, you know.
Well, what would you say to the person who says, because there are plenty of them, to the person that's like, well, you know, that may be fine for a natural human standard, but, you know, what about a God? If he can do anything he wants, then any suffering is too much suffering. What would you say to...
Well, if he were to stop people from driving into the, you know, flying into the trade centers, what I'm saying is if he went down the line and kept eliminating things, people would be infuriated that he was allowing people with 8 items to get in the express lane. You know, you know what I mean? It's endless.
Reminds me of Kevin.
Oh yeah, well, Ben, you're laughing. Do you have a comment on that?
Christy just whispered in my ear. It reminds me of her brother Kevin. He lost his 18-year-old son to cancer, and he blames God. And it's an unfortunate thing because he spent the past 3.5 years now blaming God, and he just doesn't quite understand. To him, it's God's fault. And even though we've explained to him many different ways, including his own son explained to him before he passed away that it wasn't God's fault, that that it's the devil's fault here. And but for some reason Kevin is just very bitter and blames God and just doesn't want to realize that it wasn't God's fault.
Ben, I have a quick question. Maybe you know this. Christy's brother, right, is what you said? So your brother-in-law. Okay. So what God does he blame? Does he blame the God of Islam? Does he blame the God of Jehovah's Witnesses? Does he know which God he's blaming?
Oh yes. Oh yes. He's a Christian.
He fully understands.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
fully
So the God of Isaac, Jacob, and Abraham. Is that correct?
Yes. He was.
Yes.
He's definitely a Christian. He knows the truth. He is definitely a believer, but he's chosen now to not accept the fact that Zach was here on this world for a period of time for a specific purpose that God had for him, and that's God's plan. That's not Kevin's plan. That's not Zach's plan. That's God's plan. And so God felt that in his plan, Zach had served his purpose, and Zach touched many, many lives, and he had an amazing ministry in that short period of time that he was suffering with cancer. He touched thousands of lives because of social media, and Kevin just doesn't understand that. And I agree with M and K. He made a very valid point about some of the things that he said. And I'll just leave it there. He really touched me with what he said.
So Ben, Christy, is he moving away from believing in God and just kind of shunning God now? I mean,
He
there's no way
doesn't.
he can not believe, right? Go ahead, Christy.
He doesn't think prayer works, and the reason behind that is everybody supposedly prayed for Zach to live, and Zach didn't live. So in that case, prayer doesn't work. And my dad tried to tell him, okay, well, just because you think prayer didn't work, God can say yes or no or not right now. He did answer your prayers. It's just not what you wanted. But you can't say prayer doesn't work. God had a plan. God fulfilled that plan for Zach. And Kevin just feels like everybody failed him because we didn't pray hard enough for Zach to live. So prayer doesn't work, so he's not praying anymore.
I hope he's not bordering on atheism. That's all I got to say.
Well,
I
I really hate that kind of line of thought. Like, even people of kind of a reformed position, that think God does meticulously control everything and absolutely nothing can oppose him. Not even the God of this world, whatever they think that means. But I agree with one thing they say. No matter how evil or what tragedy or trauma you can observe taking place, we simply don't know the whole story. So even though I kind of disagree, pretty vehemently with the God controls everything and little babies dying is for God's glory somehow, and it'll one day become clear why this was the best possible thing that could happen. I don't think that's accurate, but the one thing is this huge X factor that we fail often to consider. So yeah, we really don't know what happens. Like, by the way, how many times have you prayed for something, maybe a job or illness or something like that, and then based on a series of events that happens after or while you're praying, you don't get the answer you're hoping for in prayer, and you can see that as the best possible thing. You're like, oh my gosh, if I would have got this prayer answered, I can immediately see now. Like back then, I thought God didn't answer, and I thought God wasn't real, and God wasn't listening. He was just like a milk jug, right? Saying yes, no, or maybe. Not right now. God was no better than a milk jug. So, but after a certain, series of events happen, you're like, oh my gosh, the greatest prayer of my life would really just be thankfulness that prayer I was praying for didn't happen. And we're aware, I guess, of all the variables or some of the variables involved, but that's a very real thing. That just kind of is a lesson and maybe a little humility. Like, yeah, maybe there is a God that's really looking out for us. Maybe it is a milk jug. Peace be upon the milk jug. But yeah, I don't think that's the most likely answer. But hey, Mr. Seawater, how are you doing?
Like, what's with all this maybe nonsense? Maybe this. Maybe he prayed for something and it didn't come true, but he's thankful that it didn't come true. What's all that shit about? You know, this has got nothing to do with any God. This has just got to do with maybes. Nothing. Maybes. Makes absolutely no sense. I'd like to acknowledge Pio in the chat. Hey, Pio. Welcome. Yeah, I haven't seen you for such a long time. I kind of wonder what the hell is wrong with you. Has your life taken a turn for the normal? Well, I guess if it has, great. If not, then everything's back to the same. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't heard a single rational reason for even believing in this God. Never mind what this God is actually said to what the God's attributes are said to be, and how it's a good God, not an evil God, and all this kind of crap. Let's see what happens.
Have you been listening? Are you familiar with the topic?
Topic.
Oh yeah, I just right now I came up and I did listen to the part about the prayer and cancer, some heavy stuff, and yeah, I did have something to say, but I think you were in the middle of something, so I'll just wait until you're all finished, and I'll jump in a little bit later.
We're all finished. The floor is yours, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, I can tell you the story about when I was a lot younger in my age. I used to believe in a little character called Santa Claus. And the thing is, I remember reading through the pages of this toy store. What they had was this wooden horse. Remember those? You could just rock on it back and forth.
Rocking horses.
Right, exactly. And I thought I wanted one of those because I saw them on TV too. Like these really old cartoons. I wanted one of those. And so, I get the usual spiel of, you be good and maybe Santa will come down your chimney and get you stuff you want. And, I did my best. I did my very best of being good. But we weren't exactly rich. And, well, okay, spoiler alert, in case everybody didn't know, it wasn't really Santa who brought me anything. It was my mom. My mom, instead of bringing me a rocking wooden horse, she bought me the game of Operation. The beep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the game. And so when I got that, and my Sinead said, I'm sorry, Sinead is my sister. And when I said, wait a minute, this isn't a wooden rocking horse. I did everything I could. Why didn't Santa bring me what I want? And my sister was like, well, you did get the rocking horse, but you did get the operation, so you should be happy about that, right? Happy what you got? And I hope I'm not too sure did I make my my analogy relate to the current topic, but you see what I'm saying?
So you wanted a horse and your mom got you operation, and what was the result? Disappointment?
Well, no, it was fun for the time the battery was still working, but I was just still saying it wasn't what I expected. So, like, I hope you realize that how can this maybe in a way relate to praying for God and getting something you didn't expect. I'm not saying the thing that you got that you didn't expect isn't necessarily good. It can be something good, like the operation game I got, but it wasn't something you expected. So how would you relate? Would that correlate to the idea of God working in mysterious ways?
I think maybe. I think we'd have to stretch it a while to accommodate your mom and Santa Claus. I think I get what you're saying, though.
LOL. Sorry.
Well, yeah. What brought me, or what made me think? I guess while you were talking, Seawater. Is, by the way, what's your name? Do I just call you Seawater?
Oh, oh yeah, you can call me Seawater, Cecil, Margaritaville,
Well,
John, whatever.
Mr. Ocean, is that copyrighted from Ocean's 11? Anyways, but yeah, well, while you were talking, some other people like Ben and Roy, they kind of put in chat, and I'll talk about that. But right, like the Lord's Prayer, right? You know how a lot of times people are like, look, your Bible, your stupid Christian Bible, that's all myth. Gosh, when did I become so darn critical? I've been hanging around bad people too long. Anyway, but people will say, well, look at your own Bible. It says clearly that, Jesus says, if you ask for anything, you'll have it. And, I'm like, guys, if you turn one page back, I'm going from memory, but, whenever this happened last time, I turned just one page back. And it's very clear instructions on how exactly to pray. And it's around the Lord's Prayer part. But, Jesus is clearly saying, look, if you pray in the will of the Father, pray this way, pray like this. He's basically saying pray for God's will. So if you say, God, let your will be done, that's what you're praying for, that's what's going to happen. Self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps, but that's what the script says. So if you turn one page more, and then you're like, oh, look, it says anything. If you pray for anything, you'll have it. So I pray for a Lamborghini to appear right behind me right now. Oh, there's no Lamborghini. Oh, there's no God. Your prayer doesn't work. So I think a lot of times it's like that. It's like just turn one page back and you're like, look, this is very clear. If you pray, in the will of God, the being that created you, and then you get to if you ask anything in my name, well, you've just been, given kind of a clear blueprint on exactly how to pray. Anyone want to talk about that real quick? Ben or Roy?
Nate, God has answered your prayer. Your dog's name is now Lamborghini.
Oh, look, he's ready to go. He's ready. Rocco? Are you going to take him to a test drive? Well, anyway, hey, by the way, yeah, for the people watching, we have too many Christians in here. I think if some opposition doesn't join soon, we're probably going to break out the snakes and start running around the building or something, or breaking out the Kool-Aid. Anyway, so yeah, go to nickcunningham.org/guest and join us in here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people equate God with genie. I wish for this, I wish for that. God is their own personal servant, and when he doesn't accommodate, then he doesn't exist in their mind, and they're going to kick him to the curb. We were just talking about that in the green room with Christy's brother, how, yeah, he's kind of bitter and angry at the Lord as a Christian because there was a death in the family. So, death is inevitable. We all are going to go through it. If we just understand that we don't understand, we'll understand. Understand?
And I mean, look at the stories in the Bible, right? Because, not to diminish anyone's tragedy, tragedy sucks. That's why it's called tragedy. It's deserving of the name. But if you're trying to compare this versus God, not God, look at the accounts we have in text, from the Bible. There's like tragedy upon tragedy. I mean, if you just take Job, I think that says it. So, Job had a pivotal moment. Everyone was encouraging him, to curse God and basically try to get zapped so he could end his, existence. And, he persevered. And, again, if we're talking about any of the Bible like it's true, then let's talk about the whole thing like it's true. So, if, Job's whole family got wiped out from him, but I don't know. I'm just trying to put this in, right, like, I'm really trying to get the emotion out of it. Because emotion's great for feelings, and I guess making yourself in some sort of state to receive certain things you want, or affirm certain beliefs or patterns that you're really hoping are true or believe are true, and you're trying to keep that way. But I think everyone that wants to be thought of as a truth seeker, and really reasonable and logical and rational, and we don't let emotion get in the way. Well, then do that now. So yeah, Job's family kind of got taken away from him. They all died. And I'm just thinking, even Job, if there's anyone to have a better excuse than him to freak out and curse God and try to die, well, I don't think there is one. So anyway, the point is, goodness, I'm rambling a lot. My dog keeps running around my room. But yeah, I guess, yeah,
Well, let
Well,
me add this real quick, Nate.
I have to go deal with my dog. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Well, you talk.
Yeah, I want to add to what Nate is saying. There isn't anybody in Scripture that would have a worse time on planet Earth as far as what happened to him. And if you know the behind the scenes, and he didn't, he never did. We do. We know the behind the scenes. And say about it what you will, but Job withstood the onslaught of Satan in every aspect of his life. And he even was quoted saying, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." I mean, now that's loyalty to God, which I probably don't have that kind of loyalty, but I want to have that as much as possible, because no matter what happens to me, and yes, I've had my fair share and probably will continue to have my fair share of, as Nate just said, tragedy. But that's my puny mind of a human being looking at that. I don't know the bigger picture. I don't understand it. But I know as a believer, God will turn it into something good. So I just want to say and emphasize that I do want to say the same thing. Even though God would slay me, take this away from me, take that family member away, and so on and so forth, I'm still going to trust him because he's got a better plan than I could ever dream up. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Well, thanks, Roy. I think I can form a thought now. I've kicked my dog out, and now he's bothering my wife, so it's her problem. Love you, honey. Anyway, but yeah, so no matter what happens in Job's lifetime, his life, his family, whatever, it's what, like 100 years, even if you're taking, I don't think we have a recorded age of Job. Let's just say a couple 100 years. I'll say 1,000 years. Let's be extreme. So no matter how long someone could possibly live on this earth, really, if there's something good and there's this, eternity circle they're jumping into right after this natural life, then I don't really think you can say that, oh, this life is so horrible and God's so evil. I mean, even to the people this stuff happens to, if truly, there's a God that's responsible for everything, then as soon as they die, they win. They're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. Oh, this torture, this thing's happening. And then they die and they're like, oh, well, I guess that's all over now. And even in recorded, in the story of Job, this is a guy who, again, if we're talking about the text like it's true, it wasn't just wishful thinking, or he's like, oh, I really hope my dead family's in a better place, or I hope this, according to the narrative of the story, God actually shows up in pretty empirical, extraordinary fashion, and, like a talking whirlwind of fire, basically. So, he has this big dialogue through several chapters with Job, explaining all the things Job doesn't know and all the things that happened and Job can't possibly know. I think the one thing, God never says is Job can't know God. He tells Job plenty that he can't know everything about this cosmos, everything about the creation, everything about the earth or even his world. But he never says you can't know me. So I think a lot of times people want to antidote. They want to address the symptoms rather than the source. I think if we skip the symptoms and kind of drop an anchor on, to the bottom of this thing, it all comes back to, before you think, well, I'm not a belief in a God, but let's talk about this God like it's true and he's evil based on these observations or based on what I read in the text. If you don't have a definitive answer, at least something you're very confident on standing, whether or not you believe a God or don't think a God exists, I think, it's just speculation, but I really think it's a detriment to the whole, debate at large about God to try to debate morality or actions or problem of evil if you don't even have a solid stance on whether there's a God or not. So I think that's to be considered. But hey, Ed, what's up, man? I'm glad you showed up. Yeah, this topic went really quick. I thought we were going to have to end like an hour and a half early. But if you're here and willing, I would love to talk about that blog post. I know we've had a lot of conversations before along those lines, but someone, I think it was Xbox, shared the blog post you made recently, and I thought that was great. So yeah, if you want to chat about that for a little bit, welcome, sir.
Sure. And somebody just sent me a link to a video. Somebody, I have no idea who they are, made a video answering.
So this guy on the screen right now, that's Ed Brayton. Ed Brayton, he started a website called, I can't remember, it was an atheist website. I can't remember what he started. And then he became a correspondent on Patheos. He, in the non-religious section, he wrote articles there. He passed away, unfortunately, I believe, within the last 2 years. He had some he had some physical issues, and it was a great loss. He was a very good talker, very well 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 spoken. He wrote well. He's a loss, but so let's enjoy what he has to say. Let's learn.
Bring them, and I got through about 3 minutes of it before I couldn't stand anymore.
Well, I guess before we talk about that, we were wrapping up the the problem of evil. Care to
Yeah,
weigh in
Nate, I
on that?
think Cecil wanted to ask you a quick question about that before we get too far away from that. Cecil?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, you did at one point mention the short and sweet version of being Christian is loving Jesus and loving people. Do tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're good. Keep going.
Okay. So if that's the basic criteria, and you were talking about Job and his suffering and all that jazz, that I'm just wondering, did he, like, and you did mention that after he died, obviously, heaven, sweet paradise, glory, wondrous. You did mean that, right?
That's certainly what I believe.
All right. And Job went through a lot of bad stuff, but I just wanted to clarify, he didn't get to heaven because of his suffering, but because he followed the teachings. Is that it?
Yeah, and I wasn't talking about Job. I was talking about his departed family.
Well, I don't think it was because Job did something in an active sense. What enabled Job to get to eternity is his belief in God and his willingness to worship God.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we are commanded to do now.
Yes. His faith got him there. By faith.
I don't think that was. I'm not sure that was a question though. Like, at least whenever I was saying it, I wasn't saying anything about Job in heaven. I was talking specifically about those who suffer, like those who suffer and then the suffering ends because they're dead. I was making the case that if this Bible thing is true, then no matter how much time we spend on this earth, that's a blink of the eye. So even the people who are suffering and leave this world in pain, I think if their faith is in Christ, then they're like, oh, well, that really sucked, but well, guess that's over now. And I'm not saying it to like diminish the pain or diminish the suffering. I'm saying it to point out a very real thing. So you have to separate yourself from emotion and really logically think through this. If it's true, then yeah, the time you're here really sucks. But if you live for infinite amount of time, then consider that. Anyway, but yeah, I guess when Mr. Ed gets back. Hey,
yeah, we got some new people, Nate. So welcome to all the new people. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, yeah.
Have you any remarks, comments, questions about the topic at hand?
To be honest, I haven't seen enough of it to know what you're talking about.
The problem of evil? It's no problem.
Okay. As soon as Ed gets back, we're gonna switch topics because
the problem of evil doesn't interest me that much, and I don't really see it as a problem personally. So.
Great. Neither do we.
Right on. Yes, exactly. Neither do we.
Although I maybe did a little bit when I was a Christian, but that's kind of a different story.
Nate, why don't you introduce what you saw, what I saw that Ed published before Ed gets here, so they have some clue of what Ed is doing, and give us some context if you would. So Ed's an atheist.
Get you later, Seawater. Oh, Ed is back. Well, I'll let Ed take it. Yeah, Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about your article you wrote recently? I was going to, but I don't think I could do it near the justice. I guess you can just give the cliff notes before we get into it, so people are aware of what we're getting into.
Well, let me just say this to preface it. So Ed's an atheist, speaking to the atheists, and Ed, take it away.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just sat back down. What's going on?
I was saying before we start talking about it, do you want to maybe hit the bullet points of kind of a vague description of what it is, so people are aware of what exactly we're talking about with your article?
Oh yeah, this is actually, I don't know when it was. What was it? Several months ago.
Oh, has it been that long?
Last March. This is not new. I participated. I was asked to take part in a panel discussion at Grand Valley State University here, near where I live. And it was a panel discussion on atheism and atheists. And there were 7 of us on the panel, 3 students, 3 professors, and me. And the audience was about divided in half. They packed this auditorium. And a lot of them were there from the local like secular student alliance group, CFI chapter, and a lot of them were there from Campus Crusade, or now called Crew. And so it was quite an interesting discussion. And over the course of the discussion, I sort of realized how many bad arguments there are being made by, and not necessarily the people on that panel. There was one of them that really irritated me, but because he was just saying the most simple-minded things imaginable. But I decided at some point after that, within the next few days, to just write up something. Here's some arguments I wish my fellow atheists would stop making, because I think they're not very thoughtful. I think they're sometimes just plain factually incorrect. Usually they're just oversimplifying the issue tremendously and not recognizing that the world's a little more complicated than maybe they would like to believe. And so I wrote up a thing about that, and there were a list of 9 things that I came up with, and that's not an exhaustive list by any means, but it was sort of the first ones that came to mind, and I wrote up a thing about it, and that was, I guess, about 10 months ago now. But somebody apparently shared it on Google Plus here in the last couple of days, and last night I got a message saying there was a Hangout going on about it, and did I want to join, but I was already talking to some friends and didn't bother. So.
Well, there's a Hangout going on about it right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Forbidden Fruit's got one going.
Oh, somebody sent me, yeah, I got a link to that one, and I made it through about 3 minutes before I couldn't take any more.
Well, how timely. I guess, first of all, Ed, do you want to tell them where they can go and find this? I'm screen sharing now, but what, Free Thoughts blogs / dot anything? Or?
Free Thought blogs / dispatches is my blog. I can.
That's the name of it. freethoughtblogs.com is what he founded.
Put the link here in the text, but people watching won't be able to see that. There's the original.
Let's see. I don't know if we have the time or you have the willpower to want to go through all these, but I guess we can just hit the cliff notes. So anything, I mean, this is like your shortest one. Please stop saying we're an atheist. Babies are atheists in the same sense that an office chair is an atheist. That office chair knows there's a God, I'm telling you. Their statement is trivially true and completely irrelevant to any discussion I can imagine. I don't know if we really need to talk about that a lot. I think that speaks for itself.
Well, I think there is some background for that, though. I mean, I think that atheists make that argument for 2 reasons. Number one, because they really, really want atheism to be just this complete lack of a belief. Like, I haven't given it any thought, I don't know anything, you know, totally the burden of proof's on anybody else, not me.
The default position.
Yeah, and I just think that's nonsense. And I didn't always. 10 years ago, I probably would have said the same thing. And the other reason I think it's made is because it's in reaction to many religious people saying, and Christians in particular, because the Bible actually implies this at least, that we're all born with this knowledge of the existence of God, and then because of sin, we block it out or ignore it. And I think that's an equally bad argument. I just don't think that a good response to a bad argument is another bad argument. I think it's to explain why it's a bad argument. I think, first of all, this sort of relates to a separate question, which is this idea of the burden of proof. And Ozymandias has done some terrific videos on this, I know. In sort of disputing that idea that atheism is just a lack of belief in God. Now, it's one of those where, okay, technically that's true, but I don't know anybody who has never considered the question. And I don't think that someone who has either never considered the question or isn't capable of considering the question and then come to some sort of conclusion, whether they feel total certainty or whether they hold it rather tentatively, through some thought process. And if you have reasoned yourself to a conclusion that you don't think the evidence supports the existence of God, you should be able and willing to articulate the reasons why. And so I just don't think it's a reasonable thing to say, hey, I have no burden whatsoever. My default position is that there is no such thing, and it's totally up to you to prove it. Yeah, babies are born atheists in the same sense that they're born political independents. They have to be indoctrinated into being Republicans or Democrats or Libertarians. They're born babies in the same sense that they're born global warming deniers. You know, so it's true only in the most trivial and irrelevant sense, I think.
From my point of view, though, that these sort of arguments that you're born with this knowledge, you're just suppressing it.
Okay, this guy is named Cliff. And let me get myself back. Here we go. This guy's named Cliff. English dude. I think his name's Cliff anyway. Cliffhanger? I can't remember what he called himself. But anyway, this is a guy who is the biggest fucking liar I've ever met. He's an atheist, but he's the biggest fucking liar I've ever met in my life. I'll tell you why. We were on a hangout together once. Him and me and Hillary Pugh and a whole bunch of other people. And they were talking to him about relationships and stuff like that. And he says that he's a virgin. He came out that he's a virgin. And somebody asked him something about it and said something, I can't remember what. And his response was, well, I happen to, what did he say? I happen to respect women, and I don't use them. I don't get out of my way to use them. I respect them. And everybody in the hangout, wow, Cliff, what a guy you are. What a real man you are. Listen to you. Huh? Just listen to you. Anyway, turns out, a couple of years after this was taken, maybe 2 or 3 years after this show, he comes back as, what did he call himself? Firstly, he comes back as a she and calls himself, I don't know, Lucy or something. So he was a cross-dresser, transvestite, whatever it was, all along. But he was trying to hide behind this this veil of honor that he's never ever had sex with a woman because he respects them too much and wouldn't want to just, be like a regular disrespectful man. Oh no. So this is Cliff.
I find that unconvincing as well because
it's a terrible argument.
Sorry?
Yeah, that's a terrible argument. I just don't think that the right response to a terrible argument is another terrible argument.
Yeah. I just don't find it. I don't find it at all useful because just because Scripture says so doesn't make it so.
Oh, okay. I'm preparing the room, the hangout room, because this might get a little bit boring. If it does, let's just talk about other stuff. Okay? So I'll throw the link in a second.
And I think it tends to be the literalists that go along that line.
I think that argument is bad. I think that response to that argument is bad, and nobody should make either one of them.
Well, yeah, and I guess, in defense, regardless, something is true, it's true. If something is false, it's false. But in lieu of...
You wanted to be respected as a woman. You kill me, you know that.
Us knowing factually, empirically what is true and what is false, well, then it's a best guess. I really think, it comes down to, well, it is subjective, right? In thousands of years, it's still subjective. Just like we read earlier, I think they were having the same argument that I opened up with about the problem of evil and things like that, talking about how, the God of this world has blinded people's eyes and things like this. So, they won't accept these things. And I found it kind of funny, kind of sad, like Mad World, right? How I was reading through this earlier to make a point regarding the problem of evil, and I thought, wait, this is like one of the most major arguments we still have. People, arguing whether there's a God. How do you know? Am I blinded? Am I suppressing the knowledge? We're still having this problem, and clearly they're having this problem thousands of years ago. So we need to move on or do something different. History. I don't even think history is repeating itself. History has just kept doing this. There's never been a break for it to repeat. It's just still going like perpetually forward.
So I don't think that makes it subjective, but that's an entirely different conversation.
I meant subjective in regard to the whatever was said. This is true because the Bible says so, and if it's true, it's true. But to someone that doesn't even know if there's a God or they won't take a stance on that, I just don't see any need to really go down that road. Did you want to say something?
I find people doing exactly that, trying to effectively presuming to tell me what I think and what I believe. And as somebody who hasn't gone through deconversion, I've never been a theist. I find that offensive.
Well, interestingly enough, we actually get to that in one of the later ones.
Well, hey, let's go look for that right now.
Well, I just wanted to quickly add, the whole babies are atheists thing. When I newly deconverted, that almost made sense to me, but that was because I was looking at it from my own default position. And I don't. The problem is, the more I talk to people, the more I realize everybody has a different default position. I don't think there is one correct default, and so that's kind of why the argument just makes no sense to me whatsoever anymore.
Well, hey, Ed, I'm going to take a guess. Is it number 4?
No, it's actually at the very beginning. So the introduction to this thing, I didn't number this one, but this is kind of what prompted me to do this, was that one of the Christians in the audience stood up and made that exact argument. Well, I know you claim not to believe in God, but in your heart of hearts, which is a phrase that hits my spine like nails on a chalkboard. It's just such a meaningless dribble sentence. In your heart of hearts, you know that there's a God. And my reply to him was, do you have any idea how patronizing and offensive that is to tell someone what they truly believe? And the one sort of obnoxious atheist on the panel, a few minutes later, declared that he didn't think that anyone really believes in the God of the Bible. And one of the Christians in the back of the auditorium said, I do. And this professor immediately, just jumped right on him. Oh, you do? Really, you do? You actually believe that God told Abraham to cut off part of his son's penis? And I jumped in and I stopped him and I said, wait a minute. I said, first of all, we're not here to argue with the audience. And second of all, you're doing the exact same thing to him that he was doing a few minutes ago. You're telling him what he believes. And that's patronizing and offensive, and you need to shut up. And after that, he piped down a bit. So, yeah, I think this idea that, of telling someone, well, you really do believe this, you just don't know it, just shut up. Anybody who says that.
Yeah, I guess I kind of, bridge the gap a little bit. What I'm about to say requires people to be personally responsible and hold themselves accountable. So there's a lot of people I'm not even talking to right now. But I think, if this is something you honestly believe, then I don't think, regardless, I agree. A lot of this stuff sounds offensive and patronizing, and it is. But, if this is a conviction someone holds, either, anti-Christian or pro-Christian, it should still be, acceptable to discuss. And be like, well, look, I really think if you're honest with yourself and really do some soul searching, you'll realize you somehow have been suppressing truth or something. I think that should be fine. And then, if it's an acceptable answer for the person saying, look, I've been there, done that, soul searched, I really don't. So I think that should be fine to discuss because, freedom of speech, I don't think, we should be able to discuss these things. But it's all
freedom of speech is a legal concept, okay?
Well,
of course you have the right to tell me that, but if you tell me what I believe rather than asking me what I believe, my response is going to be to tell you to go fuck yourself.
And I probably would use different language. But yeah, the freedom of speech, right? Just because it's your right doesn't make it right. But anyways, but it's in the spirit of how it's said, right? So I could deal with someone saying, look, I honestly don't think you have a belief in the God of the Bible, and discuss it and be like, well, ultimately, look, I think you're wrong. I totally do. So if you think I'm lying, then I accept that. But if someone's like, oh, well, like you said, the example, like, oh, you really think God did this? It's like, man, I've got no time for you. Sorry.
I got no time for either one of those things.
And I think that's where a lot of people fall into. But yeah, I can't tell you how on board with that your sentiment I am. when people are like, oh, what do you identify as? I'm like, I'm a Christian. They're like, oh, you hate gay people and abortion, and you hate mothers who want to have an abortion, da da da. I'm like, what? I'm like, no to all of that, categorically no. And they're like, oh, well, you think this, or you're so dumb, you think they're 6,000 years old. I'm like, better idea. Why don't you just ask me questions and let me answer them? Like, nothing's more, it drives me closer to the edge than people telling me, asking me a question. I get a sentence out, then they'll tell me what they think I'm going to say, and then they'll criticize the results of what they think I would say. So I'm completely on board with you on that.
And I say that in that essay that maybe we stop just thinking that once we apply a label to somebody that we've defined everything they believe. Maybe we should start asking them what they believe instead of telling them what they believe. Maybe we could actually have a productive conversation if we did that.
And there is a loaded element to things, isn't there? There's that sort of, oh, you're an atheist, you believe in science, you believe in evolution, you know all about evolution and things like that.
Okay, Cliff has shut the fuck up, so now I can tell you that the room is ready and open. Please join. Cliff, carry on.
I was like, no. And my atheism is not dependent on whether evolution is true or not, either. And it's this presupposition almost. It's a presupposition. I know what you think because you've labeled yourself as something.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly easier to do that, and there's no shortage of it. But yeah, I think to have a real conversation and a real discussion, you need to talk to people and ask them what they believe. Otherwise, you're not even addressing them. So it does take a little bit more work, but that should be fine. I mean, we should be willing to put in the extra work to ask people questions instead of kind of presume things about them.
I invented a phrase for this that I know is terrible Latin. So people who speak Latin will grit their teeth when I say this, but I invented a logical fallacy that I call the Argumentum Ad Labelum, which is this idea that if I've applied a label to your argument, I've defeated the argument. Oh, that's such a liberal thing to say, as if you've engaged the argument in any way whatsoever by saying that. Oh, that's a typical fundamentalist thing to say. Okay, is it true or is it false? Because you didn't say anything about that. So there's a phrase I've been using for a long time. And for me, I had a big wake-up moment toward this idea of recognizing that there's a whole bunch of different versions of Christianity out there, that there isn't a one true Christianity. And it happened about more than 20 years ago when I first began going online. The first place I went was the CompuServe Religion Forum. This is like 1992. This is before graphical browsing.
CompuServe.
Yeah, this is old school.
That dirt roadness.
And I met this guy in there named Henry Neufeld. Henry Neufeld's a fascinating guy. He's from Florida. He's a ordained Methodist minister, but he doesn't have a church. And he has a PhD in Hebrew studies. And I was, 24, 25 years old. I was a few years out of having sort of deconverted, left Christianity and become an atheist. And I had my handy dandy list of Bible contradictions.
Welcome. Boy, it's been a while.
Let me just mute the other stuff. Yeah, so I don't know if we are live or not.
Yeah,
And I only have
we're
like 15 minutes.
How many minutes?
Because 15. No, it's
15!
14. Yeah, because my weekly show I'm watching is starting in 14 minutes.
Oh, you're a slave to your
Addiction.
to your TV set, I see.
No, it's a gin tonic show.
That's nice. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, and it's not made by the guys which were made like last year or something. The new guys doing it.
What new guys? There's new guys?
Yes. So in fact, Stubbs and Rob, they kind of canceled the show last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, they didn't cancel it. They said we going into a break.
Yeah.
And there was nothing.
Uh-huh.
And then suddenly some of their guests decided to continue the show, and now they are doing it.
Ah, fair enough.
And that
Has the show changed much? The format changed?
no, in fact, it's nearly the same. Because if it would be the same, I would not watch it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are talking about Islam, and both of them, or two guys of them, are ex-Muslims, and there is also one guy who is a Muslim. So you have like two different points of view on topics.
Yeah, that can't be. I don't know. It's not the kind of way I like. If there's two different points of view on topics like I don't know, politics or something, fine.
No. What I mean by that it is not like a show that we are atheists and we are the greatest or something, right? There is also other opinions allowed, and therefore is the other guy there, right? And he is a Muslim believer. I don't know if you can see my camera.
No.
Stuff. Okay.
I can see you on the screen, but I don't see your camera. I can see what's. I don't know. What do you mean? You cannot see? I can see your.
My camera is on.
Your camera's on. Yes, I can see.
And so in the background, I'm just redoing my workspace now.
Okay.
That's why you see the ladder.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so I'm painting my room new and
my! What's this in aid of?
Yeah, because I worked as a security guy for I think 8 months.
Yeah.
Was able to save like nearly 10,000 euro in this time. But of course, I was working like 12-hour shifts.
Sure, yeah.
So I couldn't do anything else. I think I produced like 2 videos in this times during this time on my channel, on my own channel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but now life is good again because since 4 days I'm working as a graphic designer. And
are you working from home?
Yes.
Oh, even better.
I have home office because this was the work I was searching for. So you said it's CVs or something.
CV.
So I sent hundreds of them out, but I always said I want to work from home.
Yep.
And yeah. And now suddenly I got the job. I got the job in December last year. I signed a contract, and then I have like.
Is it a long-term contract?
2 years, which is not usual because usually you get, if you start at a company, you get a contract for 1 year. But I got already one for 2 years.
Yeah. And when did you start there?
Pardon?
When did you start there?
4 days ago, on the 1st of February.
Got it. How's it going? Do you like it?
It's fun. It's not a work. It's fun.
Good.
I make like 4 videos in those time for the company.
Yeah.
Or for interest. So I'm just sitting there and doing the stuff I want to do.
Do they like your work?
Yeah, and I'm enjoying myself. And the thing is, I'm earning the same amount of money as the security guy, but just working 37 hours in a week. And I can kind of I don't need to start at a specific time and end at a specific time.
Right.
So I can start if I want to at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And work until 2. I can also work until 5. And if I got my hours until Thursday full, right? I have Friday free.
I see how you do it. Very nice.
You know?
Yeah, that's very cool.
So of course there is a kind of core time where you have to be reachable, at least from Monday to Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And it's between 9 and 16 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Those are the call times. Yeah, but Friday there is no call time. You can have it free. And yeah, so and I'm working from home. I'm just logging into the company and saying I'm starting working now.
Yeah.
And
Boom.
nobody
Done.
is looking like after me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
important reason is I make my work. My work is done.
Right.
But the goals are. It's not like, oh, you have to do it tomorrow or something. No, there are people you have to talk with, and they say, oh, make this change, this. Nobody is telling you, like, you have to do this, this, and this, and this.
Yeah. Oh, and congratulations for Germany getting a new Führer.
Yeah, but this was like 2 months ago or something. I don't
Well, I
really
haven't
know.
I haven't spoken to you in years.
Yeah.
Months, years.
Months for sure.
Mhm.
Months for sure. This new guy is also a new woman.
So your new guy is also a new woman? Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
No, I'm joking. He's just homosexual. I'm joking about that. But we have also in our parliament already like 5 people who are transsexual.
So
So
I mean, it makes no difference if they're in the parliament and they do their job as politicians or whatever. Then
yes.
who gives a fuck?
Yeah. But of course, you know how the news are. Oh, this guy was this guy before that, and
Yeah,
blah,
that's the
blah,
Christian.
blah.
That's a Christian influence.
Yeah. Exactly. Who gives a fuck what they were?
Exactly.
As long as they're doing their job, everything is fine.
Yeah, this is the United States Christian Protestant, Christian Protestant and Catholic collusion to fuck the world up. That's what they do. They do it very well too. Fuck it up.
Yeah. So I will also continue. Like I have time now to do my stuff for the channel. I mean, I had also time during the work as a security guy, but I didn't have time to finish it. So I have like 5 videos in a pipeline.
Ah, okay.
Like researched and
Yep.
nearly finished and stuff.
Yep. I want to ask you about the security guard work.
Oh, it was really also fun. Not because it's kind of so the security guy. I was not like a security guy like I was controlling people or something, right?
I understand that, but okay. So where was your
Workplace.
place of work? I guess place of work.
So there are always different places.
Mhm.
So you're not.
Oh,
you get an object. You could say object, right?
Yeah.
But you are not. You don't have the right to keep it. So first, I was at the botanic garden, which was fun because I started in May. You know,
in the spring.
Yeah, sunshine, good weather, and I'm in a botanic garden.
Yeah.
So I have to be there at the entrance.
Yeah.
And ask people, oh, do you have the vaccination passport?
Oh
with
no!
And every 3 hours, I have to make a round around the botanic garden, which takes you an hour to do. No, you have time an hour to do it, but of course you can do it in 20 minutes if you want to. So in this 1 hour, I took pictures.
Okay.
Of everything that was there. So I shot like 3,500 pictures or something, just of some flowers and insects.
Just to use in your movies, your videos.
Yeah. I use it in 2 at least already.
Yeah.
And so this was the first thing. I worked there like for 4 months. It was great thing because you just stay there and look. Oh, do you have a passport? Yeah, okay, come in. You have a passport? Yeah, come in. Right? That's everything.
Okay.
And then every 3 hours you go for a walk for 1 hour, and you got paid for that.
Right.
And it's easy job. Then the other thing was, so it was just nearby, like at the same place, like 5. Those places were together. It was a university botanic institute, and this was like a building, and you had just to sit in this building and the same. Oh, who are you? Oh, you are a doctor. You are working here. Okay, sign in, go. Or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing complicated. You're just sitting there, and you have. I had my laptop with me, so I did stuff for me and watch the people. And every 3 hours you make the round. Of course, in this building was just building, right? And the third one I worked was a company which was called Cunningham, and they have like a really big hall where there are only racks with computers, and they have data from all over Germany in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there are something to do with data. So I was in a room where I had like 50 screens in front of me.
Yeah.
And I have to look them up. And nobody could go in the building without my permission.
Ooh, power.
And yeah, not only that, so there was not possible to enter this building just by saying hi to me. You have to like apply for a visit.
God.
So people came in and said, "Oh, I want to go next week, blah blah blah," and I will have to check them and make them an invitation, make the plan, perhaps another security guy come in and kind of look after him, what he's doing, and stuff like that. But yeah.
So
in December,
in December in the wintertime, you were still working as a outdoor security guard?
No, it was indoor.
Oh,
it was indoor. So it was warm. If I would have to work in a botanic garden in the winter, this will be shit. Because it was.
So where were you indoors then?
At the Cunningham, at the last company. I worked for like 3 months.
Okay.
The last 3 months I worked there. But then I got the proposal from the company I'm working now. And I got it in December. And if I have to quit, I had to quit the security guy job. But there is a time limit. Like you have to quit and then you have to still have 4 weeks. Right? Mm-hmm. So I worked the 4 weeks in January, and was it 1st of February,
So you have to give
changed my job.
30 days notice?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You cannot quit immediately, but it's okay. Because they wanted me to have on the 1st of February, and asked me in December, so I had enough time anyway.
Okay. Have you been following the Darth Dawkins saga, even though you've been working?
From time to time, because I was searching for the stuff for my channel. I was mostly occupied with Nadir Ahmed. I don't know if you know this guy.
No.
It's a Muslim apologist, and he is stupid, and therefore I just watch mostly him in the last 2 months because I'm preparing a video about him. That's why. This is the reason why. Right. But I'm still not allowed on any server where Darth Stalking is a part of. So.
But he doesn't have any control anymore of anything. Does he?
Yeah, he was kicked out of 2 servers.
Mm-hmm. But he's in the politics server now, but that's not his server.
Yeah, maybe he has special rights there, but
Maybe.
they were like his rights were minimized.
Oh, hold on. No. He's on stream. What's his name? Supreme Leader Streams or something like that.
Mm.
I think they broadcast live. I don't know. I'm not sure actually. He's very quickly losing relevance. His shtick is becoming too. He's not fooling anybody anymore. The younger generation who's coming in to question him and talk with him are just landing up laughing at him because he's such an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is thanks to Tom Rabbit, right?
Tom Rabbit and to Jefferson Spatchcock.
Yeah.
I used to watch Tom Rabbit's videos of Darth Dawkins. Now I don't have to. I just watch Jefferson Spatchcock's videos of his reaction to Tom Rabbit's videos.
Yeah, Post me a link, said, and as I told you, I have only 14 minutes time, and they are over now.
Oh, so you're done?
And the other show started already, so I want to see the other show.
Sounds good.
But nevertheless, yeah, I have much more time now in the evening, and yeah, so we'll be more frequently speaking now.
Sure,
than before.
that'd be great. Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for popping in.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, and now I have to go.
Okay, man.
Have fun.
Yeah. Take care. Okay, let's carry on.
Printed up on my desk, and well, this verse contradicts that verse. And Henry would go, yep, you're right. And I'd go, no, hold on. You are not following the script. I'm supposed to say there's a contradiction there, and you're supposed to say, no, you just don't understand it because you don't have the Holy Spirit. There's not a contradiction in the Bible. Stick to the script. And he said, yeah, but that's not my script, okay? He is a very liberal Christian, so much so that and he actually sent me a paper that he had written when he was in college about this, about the 5 different ways that you could believe that the Bible is inspired by God. Everything from God literally dictated every single syllable on one end to, on the other end, what he believed, which was the Bible is inspired in the sense that it is a record of this one particular group of people's attempts to understand God over a very long period of time. So for him, the idea that there would be contradictions in the Bible was obvious. From that perspective, of course there would be. This was written by people over hundreds and hundreds of years who didn't know one another, who had different ideas about things, And that was when I went, oh, not everybody's a fundamentalist. There's other kinds of Christians out there with other views on these things. And so that was sort of what initially woke me up to that idea. And, over the years, I've met lots and lots of Christians with all sorts of perspectives on it.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that, I believe it's what, number 2 or 3, the fundamentalists? Oh, number 4. How perfect. Tied right into it. So stop conflating fundamentalism or biblical literalism with Christianity itself. Pointing out mistakes, absurdities, contradictions. You want to keep going on that one? I think that's that's a huge thing that I deal with in my own life. Because there's so many times people are like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And it's just like categorically non-applicable. Anyway.
Well, I think there are some genuine issues there that need to be dealt with in any conversation, regardless of what your particular sort of idea of how the Bible came to be and how to interpret it and what your particular hermeneutic is. But it's the idea for me is that there is no one true Christianity. I think we do the same thing with Islam. And a lot of atheists have this idea that the only true Christians, the only true Muslims are the most extreme versions of them. The only true Muslims are Osama bin Laden and his people. The only true Christians are R.J. Rushdoony and the Christian Reconstructionists, but that basically cancels out like hundreds of millions of other people's beliefs, people you've never even met.
Well, I like how you correlated, the distinction between Fred freaking Phelps and, Bishop Desmond Tutu.
Right.
Yeah, these are both like, completely opposite ends of the, extreme, opposite ends of the spectrum. But, as far as, Christian theology goes, if Fred Phelps and Bishop Tutu, believe God, the story of Jesus, he died and lives again, and they have faith and trust in him to save them, and they're trying to live like Christ, then that's what makes them both a Christian. What has nothing to do with it is Fred's ridiculous stance about God hates gay people, or Bishop Tutu's stance about whatever his stance is, the opposite about I don't know exactly how far he takes it, like they're great or in office. I actually don't know if Tutus are more theological or political stances.
I can answer that actually, because
Sure.
Before you do, can I just point out one thing? The biggest difference between them is that Phelps never started off a speech by saying yippee 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 yowzy yowzy yowza, whereas Desmond Tutu was likely to do that.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you for that.
About 5 or 6 years ago, I had one of the great experiences of my life. I had the opportunity to meet Desmond Tutu and spend several hours with him in a small group of people. He came to Michigan State University to do the commencement speech, and one of my best friends is an Episcopalian leader on campus, and he's Anglican, and so he had asked to just have a small group of people to meet with, and I was lucky enough to get invited to it. And we actually had a conversation about this, where he and I agreed politically on most things. Like him, I am a passionate advocate of social justice. I'm a passionate advocate for equality. And so we talked about how the fact that we agree on all these things, and yet we start from two entirely different starting points. And what he said to me was really interesting. He said, I fight these battles that I fight because I truly believe that if Jesus were alive today, that's what he'd be doing. I think that's what he did while he was alive, and I think that's what he would be doing if he were alive today. And I reached the point, and that was, I had already started in this direction sort of in terms of my own activism as an atheist. I reached the point where I don't really care who believes what. I don't care so much what you believe as much as I care of what you do. And if, as a Christian, you are on the side of fairness and equality and justice, on the issues that I am, then as far as I'm concerned, you're on my team. And I work all the time with Christians who fight for LGBT equality, who fight for women's rights, who prepare meals for the homeless. And I don't see any point whatsoever in dividing us up because we don't start from the same starting point. If we reach the same conclusion that those things are important to do, I'll be happy to join arms with you and go to battle.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely where I fall about equality, social justice, things like this. I certainly believe certain things are right, certain things are wrong. Among the things I believe are horribly wrong is trying to force my personal beliefs on other people. That is completely inconsistent with my own theology. It's consistent with, my own good moral subjective character, as well as what I think, conflicts with the life of Christ. I certainly think he is for and against certain things. Again, one of the things I believe he is completely against is, forcing these ideals on people. But if we could for just a second, let's take a little sidetrack. So much stuff. It's been so long since we've chatted. I want to make the most. I want to make the most of this. But if it's all right, I guess I'd like to chat a little bit about this thing I shared earlier, trying to get you on here. I'll just recap it and read it a little bit, and maybe get your thoughts, because this is really kind of what I've been kind of focused and passionate about recently, because this stuff just will not stop. So anyway, Let's see. Someone shared the blog post you recently published. I'd like to chat about it. I'm hosting Hangout. This will make sense in a minute. Okay, yeah, here we go. I would really like the reasonable people among us to take a stand regarding stupid arguments and hate-filled, bigoted people, regardless of what they believe or lack of belief in. It's been a recent contention when I read comments. When I read comments of people bashing people like G-Man. Don't get me wrong, he certainly deserves most of it. But the large number of people commenting about him are saying some of the most hate-filled, bigoted things. And I think they don't even realize that they are G-Man in every way except for having a belief in God. Rather than distinguishing people by what they believe or lack of belief in, I'd like to start distinguishing them by how reasonable, rational, and socially aware they are. If they fall in the suck at life category, perhaps shaming them will open the door to educate them and pull them out of the slime they exist in. Anyway, great article. Take care. So, you know, I was a little bit more pointed than normal. But I really think there's a lot there. And I think, you know, people like... well, you know, you, Ozzy, you know, Sokka, Xbox, you know, these people I talk to a lot, you know, they identify as atheist. And, you know, even, what's his name? Lou someone. I met him recently. He identifies as a militant atheist. And, you know, I've had nothing but good civil interactions and conversations. You know, I don't tell people they're stupid for not believing in God and they're so ignorant they're a mudfish, or, you know, they don't tell me how ignorant I am because, you know, I dare to believe there's a God and I can't prove it. Which, by the way, ties into another one of your points. But I guess, do you think I push the envelope too far? Do you think my view is kind of misfocused, or is that kind of along the lines of what you want to do? Like, you don't want to force people to change, but you really want to open the door to educate them on why they should change.
When it comes to, if you mean change, like convert them, get them to leave their religion, or change their behavior?
Yeah, like behavior.
Okay.
Like if you're just like crappy, bigoted, hate-filled, you know, to the Christian that's like, you know, hate-filled and bigoted versus the atheist that is just as hate-filled and bigoted, telling the Christian how hate-filled and bigoted they are. You know, just the hypocrisy and just living in the mud. Nothing to do with beliefs, just how you present yourself.
I think that it's easy, and maybe I should have pointed this out, it's probably easy for people to think that what I'm saying, what I was trying to say in this essay was not to be confrontational, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying make good arguments while you're doing it. I mean, I don't have any trouble with anybody saying that G-Man's a moron. G-Man's a moron. He is. You know, I just don't think that we should pretend that just because someone's a Christian, they're a moron. Clearly not true. And really insulting and offensive to presume that about people you don't even know and have never talked to. It's, I mean, to me, so much of this Google Plus community, both on both sides, on the Christian side and the atheist side.
How dare we use the term great debate, right?
Yeah. There's nothing remotely approaching a great debate going down. There's a bunch of people screaming at each other and calling each other names. And part of my, I do not, I don't go into G-Man's Hangouts. I don't go into Arcane Logos' Hangouts or RanCam or any of these other people. I've never even talked to that guy. Because first, I don't think they're worth the time. I think they really are just unbelievably stupid. But second of all, if I go in there, I get sucked into it. And I don't want that. The first Google Hangout I ever did on here, the very first one was with Roy Montero. He may remember this. He probably does.
LOL, Ed.
It was the very first time I was invited to do a Hangout. It was a Hangout that Tim Brooks was having. And
so you were in with Tim and Roy at the same time?
Yeah, and Roy came in, and Roy started defending young Earth creationism, and I was just in a pissy mood and being an asshole, and I absolutely unloaded on him. I was a complete asshole to him.
Have you guys hugged it out yet?
Yeah. I apologized for it later, and
Ed certainly made nice. Yes.
But I feel, because I really get irritated sometimes with that, and so I find it's best not to put myself in that position because I don't want to behave that way toward people. You know, I try not to, and so best to just avoid it. Like I said, I just don't think that those the group of people that I mentioned, there's a bunch of others. They're just not worth the time. I don't want to convert them, and I don't see any point in screaming at them. They're not going to get it anyway. G-Man's not going to. You can't talk sense into G-Man. You'd have a better chance of teaching a card trick to a dog.
And I use G-Man in the post as an example because he's the most notorious one. Everyone knows who G-Man is. Personally, the people you mentioned, Ran, Arcane, G-Man. From what I've been around these guys, I like them all. I mean, Ran and I had a little tip at one point. Well, I didn't. He commented a little bit about some of my views. But generally speaking, and I haven't been around these guys much at all. But I get along with them. I try my best, to talk and, encourage, them to consider maybe doing certain things different or, just consider it. But I mean, personally, I like the guys. But I've not been around them, near as much as, all these other people throwing around Dramagate and, all this other stuff. And I haven't seen a lot of the work they've done. But, as far as my, I'm a big fan of policing our own. So, people on my side of the fence, and I'm not perfect, people correct me plenty. And when they make a good case and present me with a good reason why, then, I've made plenty of new decisions based on new information. Thanks, Roy. For the quote, that new information, new whatever. But, yeah, I think a lot of times, even though people, are like, well, we're open-minded, we're free thinkers, things like this, I'm just baffled a lot of times when I'll make a point that really has nothing to do with Christianity or God or theism or anything. I'll just make like a point from psychology or philosophy that it's not unique to me. Like this is a well accepted fact or statement or something like that that can be verified. And I'll throw this out, and then people will just give me such pushback because I happen to be a Christian. I'm like, look, guys, you're trying to invalidating what I'm saying, which is not something that helps my cause for God. It's just something that's well known. You can investigate this and learn it for yourself. But it seems like you're giving such pushback just because I'm a Christian, and you're just waiting for me to tie this point into some nail in the coffin for my God wins. I'm like, I'm really not trying to do that. So no matter how well intentioned we are, it's kind of like a pitfall we all need to be careful of, because I think for example, a Christian I think would have better luck talking to other Christians than and an atheist would probably have a better time talking to atheists. It shouldn't be that way, and it's not always the case, but more often, too often, it is the case. What do you think about that? Have you had more success talking to atheists about things you think they should consider to do differently, or?
I find myself spending at least as much time recently arguing with my fellow atheists as I do with others, and it's just because I've grown sort of increasingly annoyed by what you described is a very, very human trait. It's tribalism. And it's something that we are all prone to. None of us escape it. And we are all prone to using cognitive shortcuts. We're all prone to confirmation bias. And so I have sort of, one of my projects these days is to continually encourage my fellow atheists to try to avoid that as much as possible. None of us avoids it altogether. I am as guilty of it as anybody else. But it takes real effort to avoid it. It takes really questioning yourself. It takes not just accepting a claim because it's convenient for us in an argument. And some of the things that I had just, said, please stop saying these, some of those things were quote unquote facts that have gotten out there that people accept without any skepticism at all. And the last one is a good example of this: stop saying all the founding fathers were deists. This is an argument I have been a part of for a very long time. I've done a tremendous amount of study of this. It simply isn't true that all or even most of the founding fathers were deists. Most of them, in fact, were Christians of one type or another. And for crying out loud, don't say any of them were an atheist. If I hear one more person claim that Thomas Paine was an atheist, I go, just read the introduction to The Age of Reason. Just the introduction. Yes, the rest of the book is bashing the Bible. He was not a Christian. He was very strongly anti-Christian. But the entire first chapter of the book, or the introduction to the book, is him explaining why he believes in God. It just isn't the Christian God, So I see this stuff all the time, and and I don't mean this to sound insulting. It may sound insulting to the Christians in the room, but I guess I expect better from my side, which is why I spend so much time policing that behavior. And I'll leave it up to you guys to police your own, you know.
Can I just comment on something? There's two parts here. The first one is the way that YouTube has turned with the Great Debate stuff is there's been this, it's grown from people having, you know, someone makes a video, someone makes a counter video, someone makes the video in response to that, and it was a lot of responses. And now because of Hangouts, there's this adversarial system where it's one side versus the other. And I think that that has created such an animosity between the two parts that you know, people will jump to the conclusion, oh, you're a Christian, so therefore, and it's almost like a, you know, attack dog. As soon as you say that, you go for them, you know, and you jump to that conclusion. Well, you believe in this and you believe in that, and the same way, it's the opposite way around. You know, that, oh, atheist because there's no God, you got nothing to live for, etc. You know, it's just,
here's what the way it goes now, though, is it's okay. So one person makes a video, and then somebody else makes a video in response, and then they maybe make a third response, and then they host a Hangout, and in the Hangout, you know, somebody like G-Man comes in, and he's an obnoxious idiot, and they spend 2 hours yelling and screaming at each other, and then they host another Hangout where they talk about the fact that G-Man was being an obnoxious idiot in the last Hangout. And then, much to my annoyance, they come into a Hangout that I'm having and go, hey, did you hear about the Hangout going on where they're talking about G-Man being an idiot? And I go, no, time out. I don't go into his Hangouts because I don't want to see him being an obnoxious idiot. I don't want to talk about him in here either.
These Hangouts are going to send us all to an early grave if we don't learn how to regulate ourselves and stay away.
What a fabulous summary, Ed.
Yeah, that's why I just stay out of this whole great debate thing. I want nothing to do with it. The people I hang out with here
primarily. Turns, right? As the world turns on Google Plus.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one more thing is, like, you know, when people say, well, you know, Christians have to believe there's a God because they're scared of dying.
Yeah.
I would like, if I honestly thought death, poof, wiped out was it, I would be so happy to latch onto that and preach the gospel in a second. Like, you must believe me, people. I simply believe that's wrong. I could care less. You know, it's not because I think that's true for some people, but, you know, I think it's a minority. I think, anyways, but, you know, I think, you know, terms like Christian, atheist, great debate, they have clearly been co-opted and went right to the gutter. So I thought it would be nice to salvage it, but I think it's gone. I think we just need to.
Those are just labels.
I think there's going to be a swinging roundabouts. People are going to get sick of the drama and they're going to go for the intelligent conversation again. But it brings on my second point, which is the founding fathers, which is what Ed was talking about. It's not that they were deists or atheists or whatever. It's that they were secularists, that they created.
Wrong.
I thought that was the idea.
See,
the idea was.
Let me give you an iron law rule here.
I was saying first. Hang on.
Okay. Well, let me give you an iron law rule, though, before you start. Okay. Anytime you begin a sentence with the founding fathers were or the founding fathers believed fill in the blank, you're wrong.
Okay, that will.
Because the idea that they believed in anything other than separation from England.
Yeah.
Well, and a few of them didn't even believe in that initially, but came around after the revolution and said, okay, we'll jump in and help, you know.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that they were trying to create a secular system apart from, you know, being bossed by the British or bossed by the Vatican, any of that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we're gonna create a system where we're gonna play our own game. We're gonna create our own rules, our own system. You know?
Yes, but some of them did not advocate that system be secular at all. Some of the people that we consider founding fathers were absolutely theocratic in their output. Patrick Henry certainly was. Well, that's the point. When you start with the founding fathers believe, you're wrong already.
You're rounding it off. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, guys. The founding fathers, it's clear they were all Christian. I win. Good night. Well, hey. Well, how do you feel about this? You know, a lot of times, I was joking. A lot of times people, if there was confusion, a lot of times, people will really bring up this. I've heard it more recently about the separation of church and state. I think it's fine, but how do you feel? Or do you have experience when people try to take that into the personal lives of individual citizens? So, as far as separation of church and state, that's great, but how far do you take it? It seems recently a lot of people around here have been trying to take it to, well, because there's a separation of church and state in our government, we should trace that all the way down to, the individual people who are voting. You should leave your personal religious beliefs the heck out of politics. It may be good wisdom, but how does that strike you? Are you familiar with
I think those, yeah, I think those are entirely different issues. I think that, yeah, I would make the argument that if you're going to make an argument for a public policy, and you can't articulate a basis for it other than, I think God says so, you haven't made much of an argument at all. But that has nothing to do with separation of church and state. What motivates somebody to vote for a particular politician or to support a certain policy has nothing to do with separation of church and state. Those are just completely separate issues. So, but one is making a legal argument and one is making a normative argument. And if the normative argument is, I don't think that you should base your votes on your religious beliefs, that's fine. I have no problem with someone saying that.
That's actually an argument I make.
Yeah. But I just did participated in a debate, not on Google Plus, but a real life debate in November, and the video's on YouTube of it, over this question of whether America was a Christian nation. And I debated a man named Tim Schmig, who's the president of the Michigan Association of Christian Schools. And we debated, that subject of what the basis was for the Constitution, whether it could be traced to the Bible or Christian theology or not. This is something that I have spent 25 years or more studying. I think, again, this is an area where there's often these oversimplifications on both sides. I mean, on the Christian side, or the Christian nation side at least, we have people like David Barton, who I think is an absolutely shameless liar. On the other side, I've seen some things on, my fellow atheists say, and quotes that they use. Here's the textbook example. There's a quote that I've seen other atheists use from John Adams. And the quote is, "This would be the best of all possible worlds if there were no religion in it." Now, that's true. He did say that. But the next line is, however, and I don't look at this exactly, but his next line was, "But if there were no religion in this world, it would be hell." That's really dishonest to quote the first sentence and leave the second one out, And I actually had a guy on Facebook a few years ago that quoted that, and I put the whole context of the quote in there in a comment, in a response, and said, "You're quoting this out of context. Here's what he actually said." And he told me that I had been brainwashed by the Christians and unfriended me. So
you're one of us, Ed. You're one of us. One of us.
There is something that's worth pointing out. Because of this separation church and state clause written into the Constitution, it's created a war almost where the Christians want to get something in a public space and the secularists are saying no, you can't do that, and that makes people want to push more. So I think this is the reason why people are trying to.
I thought that Nate Cunningham was going to hold a hangout on problem of evil? Or what problem of evil? But they haven't gotten there yet. They're an hour and 16 minutes into a 2-hour hangout, and they haven't gotten to the subject of evil, what they call the problem of evil. Is it a problem? What problem? I hope they get there eventually.
To get creationism in schools and other such things. In Britain, we have a different system because we have a church, a state religion, which is, Church of England. We don't really have the war. If you believe, fine. If you don't believe, fine. We really don't care. We don't, you know, we don't mind if you believe. You know, in fact, the only time we find it offensive, I mean, a simple example, Tony Blair, it was only when he finished politics that he said that he was a Catholic. You know, and when you get a politician saying, you know, trying to sort of argue some biblical thing, it's like, ooh, people don't really like that. You know, that's something you should keep to yourself, and, you know, yeah, let that define who you are, but don't make it, you know, something you should be starting to try to impose on other people. But also, we also frown a lot. Our current health secretary believes in homeopathy. We find that worrying.
Yeah. Prince Charles does too, by the way.
Well, has it caused any problems yet, or you're waiting to see?
Well, it's the idea that, you know, this is
Just
someone
the idea
who
is
believes,
unnerving.
his argument is that even if it's only a placebo, we should spend NHS money on it. And it's like, but why? You know, it's like, oh, we're just going to use this placebo to try and treat people, but you're going to waste.
Well, hey, I've got this
hundreds of
miracle
thousands,
water.
millions of pounds.
Just send me money and I'll send you this miracle water.
Medicine.
Hey,
know?
before we get too far away from the subject,
Let me go back to, I want to respond to something Cliff Jumper said, or extend it a little bit, because he's right. I mean, this is really one of the interesting paradoxes here, that in England, where you have an official state church, religion is far less influential over public policy. And it's almost considered rude to even mention it.
Yeah. The only place where it actually has any power at all is in the House of Lords. So we've got right. You know, you've got the House of Commons, which is, you know, where the politicians work, and then you've got the House of Lords, which is where you know, the peers and things like that, and the toffs, effectively. Although they're changing it as well here and there, but they actually have bishops and things like that actually passing votes, and it's.
I don't know about you guys, but I find this incredibly boring. Nate Cunningham, your hangouts are boring. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying. I'm not saying mine aren't. Maybe mine are more boring than yours. But this is boring. So I'm going to kind of end it at this point. But I haven't finished with the retro reactions of Nate's hangouts yet. I'm certainly finished with this one because it didn't go anywhere. I'm glad that we got to see Ed Brayton again, even though he's no longer with us. It reminds me of why me and him didn't really get along, because I am an all gods are imaginary kind of guy, and he's a how do you possibly know that you're a moron kind of a guy. So still sad to see him go. So that's pretty much it. I think I'm gonna end it right here and say thank you so much for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please share, please support my channel, and don't fall for this God nonsense. It's a delusion. I accept it. You can accept it. And with that said, I'm going to say good night.